Welcome to Between Sleep and Science. If you were to approach our world from the cold, silent vacuum of space, you wouldn't see a landscape of emerald forests or golden deserts. You wouldn't see the jagged, snow-capped peaks of the Himalayas or the sprawling urban grids of our civilizations. From a distance of 1,000 miles, Earth reveals its true identity. It is not a sanctuary of stone and soil. It is a shimmering, sapphire-blue marble suspended in the dark. More than 70% of our planet's surface is claimed by the ocean. It is an immense, unbroken expanse of water that stretches for thousands of miles in every direction. A liquid skin that defines everything about the world we inhabit. The Pacific Ocean alone is a geographical titan so vast that it could swallow every single continent on Earth: Africa, Eurasia, both Americas and Australia, and still have enough room to spare for another moon. This is the stage upon which the story of life is written. The ocean doesn't just surround our world. It is our world. It regulates the very air you are breathing right now. It dictates the rhythm of the seasons, and it absorbs the staggering heat of the sun, moving it across the globe in a silent, planetary circulatory system. Yet, as we stand on the shoreline, watching the waves break against the sand, we are victims of a grand illusion. We look at the horizon and see a boundary, a definitive edge where our world ends and the unknown begins. But the truth is far more humbling. The surface we see is merely a roof. Beneath that shifting blue ceiling lies a three-dimensional kingdom that occupies 95% of the living space on our planet. It is a realm of towering underwater mountain ranges, endless abyssal plains, and canyons so deep they could hide the tallest peaks of the Alps without leaving a ripple on the surface. We live on the islands. The ocean is the continent. Despite our technological prowess, despite the satellites that orbit our skies and the telescopes that peer into the birth of distant galaxies, we remain remarkably ignorant of the world beneath our feet. There is a jarring, almost uncomfortable paradox in modern science. We have mapped the cratered, dust-swept plains of Mars and the frozen deserts of the Moon with far greater precision than we have mapped our own seafloor. Thanks to high-resolution orbital imaging, we know the location of every rock and ridge on the Martian surface. In contrast, we have explored less than 5% of our oceans. The remaining 95% remains a blurry silhouette, a world of shadows and echoes that we have only begun to sense through sonar and gravity readings. Why does this gap in our knowledge exist? Why is it easier to send a probe to a distant planet than to send a camera to the bottom of a trench only 7 miles away? The answer lies in the sheer, brutal hostility of the deep-sea environment. On Mars, there is no medium to block our sight. We can peer through the thin atmosphere from millions of miles away. But on Earth, the ocean acts as a massive light-absorbing shield. Within the first few hundred feet, the warm, vibrant colors of the sun begin to fade. First the reds, then the yellows, then the greens. By the time you reach a depth of 1,000 meters, you enter a state of permanent, eternal night. In this darkness, traditional optics fail. To map the deep, we cannot use light. We must use sound. But light is not the greatest barrier. The true gatekeeper of the abyss is pressure. To understand the physics of the deep is to understand a force that defies human intuition. At sea level, the atmosphere presses down on your body with a weight of about 14 pounds per square inch, a weight we don't even notice because our bodies are balanced against it. But as you descend into the ocean, the weight of the water column above you begins to stack. For every 10 meters you drop, the pressure increases by a full atmosphere. Imagine for a moment that you are descending into the blue. At 100 meters, the pressure is 10 times what it is at the surface. At 1 kilometer, it is 100 times greater. By the time you reach the floor of the deepest trenches, the weight pressing in from all sides is equivalent to having an elite fleet of jumbo jets stacked on your thumb. This is a force that can crush hollow steel spheres like they were made of parchment. It can collapse the strongest man-made structures and turn a standard submarine into a twisted wreckage in a fraction of a second. This crushing weight is why the deep ocean remains our last true frontier. It is a place where the very laws of survival are rewritten. For a human being, the abyss is a lethal alien void. But for the creatures that call it home, this pressure is not a burden, it is a foundation. The animals of the deep have spent millions of years evolving biological solutions to the weight of the world. They have surrendered to the pressure. They have no air-filled cavities like lungs or swim bladders that could collapse. Instead, their bodies are composed of fluid, non-compressible tissues and oils. They are soft-bodied, often gelatinous, and their internal chemistry is perfectly tuned to the crushing force of the water. For them, our world of low pressure and thin air would be just as lethal as their world is to us. The history of our attempt to bridge this gap is a story of incredible engineering and near-suicidal courage. For centuries, the bottom of the ocean was thought to be a vast, lifeless desert, a cold, stagnant grave where the pressure was too great for any living cell to survive. That myth began to crumble in 1960. In an era defined by the space race, two men, oceanographer Jacques Piccard and US Navy Lieutenant Don Walsh, turned their eyes downward instead of upward. Their vessel was the Trieste, a specialized craft known as a bathyscaphe. It was not a submarine in the sense we usually imagine. It was essentially an underwater balloon. To survive the descent to the deepest point on Earth, the Challenger. Deep in the Mariana Trench, Piccard and Walsh sat inside a reinforced steel sphere with walls nearly 5 inches thick. Above them, a massive hull filled with 10,000 gallons of lighter-than-water gasoline provided the buoyancy needed to return to the surface, while tons of iron pellets served as the ballast that would pull them into the dark. The descent was a grueling 5-hour journey into a world where no human had ever ventured. As they sank deeper and deeper, the temperature inside the cabin plummeted, and the walls began to groan under the mounting stress. At a depth of nearly 9,000 meters, a terrifying sound echoed through the sphere. A sharp, violent crack. One of the outer plexiglass window panes had shattered under the pressure. In that moment, surrounded by miles of water and millions of pounds of force, Piccard and Walsh were faced with a choice: turn back or continue into the unknown. They chose to continue. When they finally touched down on the floor of the Challenger Deep, nearly 11,000 meters below the surface, they looked out through a tiny, thick porthole into the swirling silt of the seabed. In that absolute darkness, at a pressure that should have made life impossible, they saw a flatfish drifting through the water. It was a moment that fundamentally reshaped our understanding of biology. It proved that life is not a fragile accident confined to the sunlit surface. It is a resilient, aggressive force that can adapt to the most extreme conditions imaginable. Since that historic dive in 1960, fewer people have visited the bottom of the Mariana Trench than have walked on the surface of the Moon. It remained untouched for over 50 years, until filmmaker and explorer James Cameron made his own solo descent in 2012, using a vertically oriented vessel that looked more like a spacecraft than a boat. His journey and the missions that have followed have revealed a world that is far from a barren desert. The sea floor is a landscape of staggering complexity. We have discovered that the bottom of the ocean is not a flat plain of mud. It is a dynamic, volcanic world. There are underwater mountain ranges, known as seamounts, that rise thousands of feet from the floor. Some are active volcanoes, belching out fire and ash into the cold water, creating new land in total silence. There are vast abyssal plains covered in a fine, silty, marine snow. A constant drizzle of organic material falling from the surface that feeds an entire ecosystem of scavengers. And then there are the trenches themselves. These are the Hadal zones, named after Hades, the Greek god of the underworld. They are the deepest scars on the Earth's crust, formed where tectonic plates collide and one is forced beneath the other, dragged down into the mantle to be melted and recycled. To stand at the bottom of the Challenger Deep is to stand at the very limits of our planet. If you were to place Mount Everest at the bottom of this trench, its summit would still be submerged by more than 2 kilometers of water. It is a place of absolute isolation, a realm where time seems to slow down and the rules of the surface world no longer apply. But why does this hidden world matter to those of us who live in the light? Why should we spend billions of dollars to explore a place so hostile and remote? Because the ocean is the archive of our planet's history. The sediments on the seafloor hold a record of Earth's climate going back millions of years. By drilling into the mud, we can read the story of ancient ice ages, volcanic eruptions, and mass extinctions. The deep sea is also a reservoir of biological secrets. We are finding microbes and enzymes in the abyss that could revolutionize medicine, providing new treatments for diseases that have baffled us for decades. More importantly, the deep ocean is a mirror. As we look for life on other worlds, in the subsurface oceans of Jupiter's moon Europa or the icy plumes of Saturn's Enceladus, the deep sea provides us with our best analog. If life can thrive in the crushing, lightless, chemically toxic environments of our own trenches, then the universe may be far more crowded than we ever dared to imagine. As we move forward, we are beginning to realize that the ocean is not a separate world. It is the heart of our own. Every drop of water we drink, every breath we take, and every change in our weather is tied to the silent rhythms of the deep. To ignore the ocean is to ignore the very systems that keep us alive. We are a terrestrial species, but we live on a water world. The journey into the deep is not just an act of scientific curiosity, it is an act of survival. We are entering an era where the ocean is changing faster than at any point in human history. Temperatures are rising, oxygen levels are shifting, and the footprint of our industrial civilization, in the form of microplastics and chemical runoff, has reached even the deepest trenches. To protect the ocean, we must first understand it. We must push back the shadows and map the unknown. This is the beginning of our exploration. We have crossed the threshold of the surface and felt the weight of the pressure. We have looked into the abyss and realized that it is not empty. Now, we must look closer. We must examine the strange glowing inhabitants of the midnight zone, the volcanic forges of the seafloor, and the silent migrations that connect the surface to the depths. The ocean is calling, and its secrets are waiting in the dark. As we cross the invisible threshold of 1,000 meters below the surface, the last faint ethereal blue of the sunlit world is extinguished. We have officially entered the bathypelagic zone, the midnight zone. This is the largest habitat on our planet, yet it is a realm of absolute and permanent darkness. To a human observer, it is a terrifying void, but to the trillions of organisms that dwell here, it is a shimmering gallery of life. In this world, the rules of biology are not merely bent, they are fundamentally rewritten. In the absence of the sun, life has been forced to invent its own light, to manipulate the very physics of visibility, and to stretch the limits of time and endurance. To survive in the midnight zone, you must master the art of the invisible. In the upper reaches of the twilight, the strategy was transparency. Imagine an animal that is essentially a living window, like the glass squid or the translucent comb jelly. These creatures have replaced opaque proteins and rigid skeletons with gelatinous, water-rich tissues that allow light to pass straight through them. They are ghosts in the machine of the ocean, drifting through the blue as shimmering outlines. But even transparency has its limits. In the twilight, a predator looking up from the darkness can see the silhouette of even the clearest animal against the dim light from above. To counter this, many species have developed counter-illumination. They possess photophores, light-producing organs, on their bellies that mimic the exact intensity and color of the fading sunlight. They aren't just hiding, they are erasing their own shadows. However, as we descend further into the true abyss, where no sunlight ever reaches, the strategy shifts from transparency to total absorption. In recent years, marine biologists have discovered a class of ultra-black fish that inhabit the deepest reaches of the midnight zone. These predators, such as the dragonfish and the fangtooth, have evolved skin that is more efficient at capturing light than almost any material engineered by man. Their skin is packed with melanosomes, arranged in a complex structural lattice that traps 99.5% of all light that hits it. Even if a predator uses a bioluminescent searchlight to scan the dark, these fish remain invisible. They are not merely black, they are biological black holes, drifting through the void as voids themselves. But the darkness of the deep is a lie. The ocean is not dark. It is alive with bioluminescence. This is the primary language of the abyss, a cold chemical fire produced by the reaction of a molecule called luciferin and an enzyme called luciferase. This process is nearly 100% efficient, meaning almost no energy is lost as heat, a stark contrast to the wasteful light bulbs of our surface world. Bioluminescence is the tool of the hunter, the shield of the victim, and the siren song of the lover. It is estimated that over 90% of the inhabitants of the deep produce their own light. They use it to lure prey, to startle attackers, and to find mates in a world that stretches for millions of cubic miles of empty space. Perhaps no creature embodies this marriage of light and nightmare better than the anglerfish. To the surface world, the anglerfish is a caricature of horror, a creature of needle-sharp teeth, a cavernous mouth, and a glowing lure dangling from its forehead. But the reality of its existence is far more fascinating than any horror story. The glowing orb, or esker, is a specialized organ filled with billions of bioluminescent bacteria that live in a perfect symbiotic embrace with the fish. In the absolute stillness of the deep, a single flickering point of light is an irresistible magnet. Curious prey swim toward the glow, only to realize too late that they have entered the strike zone of a master ambush predator. Yet, the most extraordinary aspect of the anglerfish is not how it hunts, but how it loves. In the vast, lonely reaches of the abyss, finding a mate is a statistical miracle. If a male and female were to simply swim past each other, they might never meet again. To solve this, evolution has produced sexual parasitism. The male anglerfish is a tiny, fragile creature born with only two highly developed tools: a massive pair of nostrils to sniff out the pheromones of a female, and a pair of eyes designed to spot a specific frequency of light. Once he finds a female, he bites into her side and never lets go. Over time, his body physically fuses with hers. Their circulatory systems join, and his eyes, fins, and internal organs wither away until he is nothing more than a permanent living attachment, a dedicated source of genetic material. A single female can carry several such males, ensuring that when she is ready to reproduce, her mates are already there, literally woven into her flesh. While the anglerfish waits, other predators have chosen a more aggressive path. The gulper eel, or pelican eel, is a creature of surreal proportions. Its body is a long whip-like ribbon, but its head is dominated by a jaw that can unhinge to several times the volume of its own body. Because food is so rare in the deep, a predator cannot afford to be a picky eater. The gulper eel is a living net. It drifts through the darkness with its massive mouth folded back. When it encounters a swarm of small crustaceans, or even a fish larger than itself, it expands its jaw like a balloon, engulfing the prey and the surrounding water in one sudden, sweeping motion. It is a master of rare opportunity, built to survive on the feast and famine cycle of the abyss. In this world of monsters, the vampire squid occupies a unique niche. Despite its terrifying name, Vampiroteuthis infernalis is neither a vampire nor a true squid. It is a living fossil, a relic of an ancient lineage that has remained unchanged for millions of years. It lives in the oxygen minimum zone, a layer of the ocean where oxygen levels are too low for almost any other predator to survive. The vampire squid does not hunt, it scavenges. It deploys two long, sticky filaments to collect marine snow, the constant rain of organic detritus falling from the sunlit surface. When threatened, it does not squirt black ink, which would be invisible in the dark. Instead, it releases a cloud of glowing, bioluminescent mucus from the tips of its arms. This dazzling display startles the predator, buying the vampire enough time to vanish into the low-oxygen shadows. Life in the deep is not just defined by darkness and pressure. It is defined by a different relationship with time. In the near-freezing temperatures of the abyss, metabolism slows to a crawl. In this glacial environment, Longevity is the rule rather than the exception. Consider the Greenland shark, a massive, sluggish predator that patrols the frigid waters of the North Atlantic. These sharks grow at a rate of only 1 centimeter per year and do not reach sexual maturity until they are 150 years old. By using radiocarbon dating on the proteins in their eyes, scientists have discovered that Greenland sharks can live for more than 4 centuries. There are individuals swimming today that were born before the arrival of the Pilgrims in America. Sharks that witnessed the Industrial Revolution from a distance of 2 miles below the waves. They are the silent, slow-moving sentinels of history. But even the Greenland shark is outmatched by the immortal jellyfish, Turritopsis dohrnii. While other creatures age and die, this tiny jelly has discovered the secret to biological immortality. When it faces physical trauma, starvation, or old age, it does not die. Instead, it undergoes transdifferentiation. Its cells revert back to their earliest state, and the adult jellyfish transforms back into a juvenile polyp, effectively starting its life cycle all over again. It is a biological reset button that allows the creature to bypass the finality of death, reminding us that in the ocean, the line between the beginning and the end is often a circle. None of this extraordinary life would be possible without the biological pump. Because there are no plants in the midnight zone, the entire ecosystem relies on the sunlit world above. This connection is maintained by marine snow. To a human observer, this looks like a gentle underwater blizzard. In reality, it is a mixture of dead plankton, fecal pellets, discarded exoskeletons, and organic dust. Each flake takes weeks or even months to reach the bottom, but as it falls, it carries the energy of the sun into the abyss. It is the manna of the deep, feeding everything from the smallest worm to the largest scavenger. The midnight zone is a world of incredible patience. It is a place where a single meal must last for months, where a heartbeat may occur only a few times a minute, and where a generation can span centuries. It is a reminder that life does not require the warmth of the sun or the abundance of the land to be complex and beautiful. In the dark, life has found a way to become the light. It has turned the crushing pressure into a shield, and the silence into a symphony of signals. As we move deeper, leaving the water column behind and approaching the sea floor, the landscape changes again. We move from the world of drifting ghosts to the world of fire and stone. We are approaching the hydrothermal vents and the brine pools, the places where the earth itself opens up to reveal the heat of the inner forge. The monsters of the midnight zone were only the beginning. The true heart of the ocean's mystery lies even further down, where the water is boiling, the rocks are metal, and life exists without any connection to the world we know. The deeper we go, the more we realize that we are not just exploring a different part of our planet. We are exploring a different way of being. The creatures of the luminous abyss are a testament to the fact that wherever there is energy, be it from a falling flake of snow or a chemical reaction in the dark, life will find it. It will adapt, it will innovate, and it will shine. The midnight zone is not a grave. It is a cradle of infinite creativity, a shimmering frontier that continues to pulse with life long after the last ray of sunlight has vanished. The stories of the fangtooth, the angler, and the Greenland shark are chapters in a much larger book, a book that humanity has only just begun to read. Every expedition, every camera drop, and every sonar ping brings us closer to understanding this alien world. But for now, the luminous abyss remains a place of mystery, a vast and silent kingdom where the light comes from within, and the secrets are kept in the cold, crushing embrace of the eternal night. The journey continues. We are dropping further toward the very floor of the world, where the liquid sea meets the solid earth. There, we will find the black smokers and the underwater volcanoes that build new continents in the dark. We will discover the brine pools, the lakes beneath the sea, where the rules of chemistry are pushed to their absolute breaking point. The abyss is deep, but our curiosity is deeper. This is the world of the Midnight Zone, a place where the shadows are alive, and the darkness is a canvas for the most extraordinary light show on Earth. It is the heart of the blue planet, and it is waiting for us to uncover the truth of what lies beneath. We have spent hours falling through the liquid void, descending past the ghosts of the Twilight Zone and the bioluminescent monsters of the Midnight Layer. But now, our high-powered searchlights finally strike something solid. For most of human history, we imagined the bottom of the ocean as a vast, featureless graveyard of silt, a silent, flat desert where time itself went to die. But as we approach the sea floor, we realize that this is perhaps the most dynamic and violent landscape on our planet. This is the Earth's inner forge, a place where the crust is torn apart, where fire meets ice, and where the very foundations of our continents are born in the dark. The geography of the sea floor is a landscape of staggering superlatives. If you were to drain the water from our planet, the most dominant feature would not be the Himalayas or the Andes. It would be the mid-ocean ridge. This is a continuous chain of underwater mountains that snakes across the globe for over 40,000 miles, encircling the Earth like the seams on a baseball. This is not just a collection of peaks. It is a rift, a place where the Earth's tectonic plates are being forced apart by the rising pressure of the mantle. Along this ridge, at places like the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, the planet is literally growing. Molten rock wells up from the interior, cooling instantly as it touches the near-freezing seawater, creating brand new seafloor. The Atlantic Ocean is widening by about 2.5 centimeters every year, roughly the speed at which your fingernails grow. Over millions of years, this slow, silent drift has opened entire oceans and moved continents across the face of the globe. But the most alien landscapes on the seafloor are found near the volcanic centers of these ridges. In 1977, a group of scientists aboard the submersible Alvin made a discovery near the Galapagos Islands that shattered every rule of biology we thought we knew. They found hydrothermal vents, towering chimneys of rock belching out plumes of jet-black superheated water. These are the black smokers. The water erupting from these vents is not boiling in the traditional sense. The immense pressure of the deep sea keeps it liquid, even as it reaches temperatures of over 400 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt lead. This water is a toxic, acidic soup of dissolved minerals: iron, copper, zinc, and sulfur. As this scalding fluid hits the cold 2-degree seawater, the minerals solidify instantly, raining down to build chimneys that can grow as tall as a 15-story building. Before 1977, we believed that all life on Earth was a gift from the sun, that photosynthesis was the only engine capable of powering a food chain. But around these black smokers, we found a world that has never seen the sky. This is the kingdom of chemosynthesis. Here, specialized bacteria have learned to do the impossible. They harvest energy from the toxic hydrogen sulfide pouring out of the Earth's crust. These microbes are the sons of the abyss. They form the foundation of an ecosystem that is as lush and crowded as a tropical rainforest, yet exists in total darkness. Among the residents of these volcanic cathedrals, the giant tube worms are the most surreal. They can grow to be over 2 meters tall, encased in brilliant white protective tubes tipped with crimson-red plumes. These worms have no mouth, no eyes, and no digestive tract. They are essentially living biological filters, hosting billions of bacteria within their bodies in a perfect symbiotic embrace. The worm provides the chemicals, and the bacteria provide the food. Nearby, we find the Pompeii worm, perhaps the most heat-tolerant complex animal on the planet. Its tail can rest in water nearly 80 degrees Celsius, hot enough to kill almost any other creature, while its head stays in much cooler water. They are covered in a fleece of bacteria that acts as a heat shield, a living suit of armor against the furnace of the Earth. But the oddities do not end with events. Evolution has pushed the limits of material science in the deep. Consider the scaly-foot snail, a creature that has done what no other animal has. It has incorporated metal into its body. Its shell and its foot are covered in iron sulfide scales, effectively armoring itself in a suit of mail to protect against the predatory crabs that patrol the vents. Or the yeti crab, a creature with furry claws that it waves through the nutrient-rich vent fluids. This fur is actually a garden of bacteria that the crab harvests and eats. It is a farmer in the dark, tending to a crop that grows on its own limbs. If the volcanic vents feel like an alien forge, the brine pools of the deep feel like something out of a dream or a nightmare. Located in places like the Gulf of Mexico and the Red Sea, these are literally lakes beneath the sea. Imagine piloting a robot across the flat, silty bottom of the ocean when you suddenly see a shoreline. You see ripples on the surface of a body of water, waves lapping against a beach, and even waterfalls cascading over underwater cliffs. But you are already 2 miles underwater. These pools are formed when ancient salt deposits beneath the seafloor dissolve, creating water that is 4 to 5 times saltier than the surrounding ocean. Because this brine is so much denser, it doesn't mix. It settles into depressions, forming distinct lakes with their own surfaces and currents. These pools are eerily beautiful, but lethally toxic. They are devoid of oxygen and saturated with methane. Any fish or crab that accidentally wanders into the brine is instantly pickled and preserved, creating a boneyard of mummified remains along the pool's edge. Yet, even here, at the very boundary of death, life finds a way. Giant mussels cluster along the shoreline, using methane-eating bacteria to survive in a world that would kill any other visitor. It is a layered reality, a sea within a sea, proving that the deep ocean still holds Inception-like mysteries that challenge our perception of what is possible. The seafloor is also the planet's ultimate treasure chest, holding more gold and precious metals than all the mines on land combined. Scattered across the vast flat abyssal plains are billions of polymetallic nodules. These are rocky lumps, about the size of a potato, that are rich in manganese, cobalt, nickel, and copper. These nodules do not grow quickly. They are the result of minerals slowly precipitating out of the seawater over millions of years, growing at a rate of just a few millimeters every eon. Today, they are at the center of a fierce global debate. As we transition to a green economy, the world is hungry for the cobalt and nickel needed for electric car batteries. Companies are looking to the deep sea to provide these resources. But scientists warn that the abyssal plains are some of the most stable and fragile environments on Earth. To mine these nodules is to disturb an ecosystem that has remained unchanged since before the dinosaurs. It is a modern dilemma. Do we save the world above by potentially destroying a world below that we have only just begun to understand? As we move away from the plains, the landscape erupts once more into the towering architecture of the seamounts. There are estimated to be over 100,000 underwater volcanoes that rise at least 1 kilometer from the sea floor. These are the way stations of the abyss. Because they rise into the path of deep-sea currents, they force nutrient-rich water upward, creating hotspots of biodiversity. Ancient corals, some over 4,000 years old, cling to the slopes, their feathery arms catching the passing marine snow. Schools of tuna and sharks use these seamounts as navigational landmarks during their migrations across the empty ocean. Some of these volcanoes are so massive that they dwarf any mountain on land. Mauna Kea in Hawaii, when measured from its base on the seafloor, stands over 10,000 meters tall, nearly a kilometer taller than Mount Everest. Even the way the ocean moves water through these landscapes is epic. Deep beneath the waves, there are underwater waterfalls that make the Victoria Falls or Niagara look like a dripping faucet. The greatest of these is the Denmark Strait Cataract. Here, cold, dense water from the Arctic meets warmer water from the Atlantic and plunges downward, falling nearly 3,500 meters. This massive, invisible cascade moves more than 3 million cubic meters of water per second, a force that regulates the global climate and keeps the conveyor belt of the ocean moving. The sea floor is not just a place, it is an archive. It is the skin of a living, shifting planet that is constantly recycling itself. At the subduction zones, like the Mariana Trench, the old sea floor is dragged back down into the Earth's interior, carrying water and carbon with it, only to be melted and erupted millions of years later through a volcano. It is the ultimate recycling program. Every grain of sand, every volcanic ridge, and every toxic pool is a page in the Earth's diary. When we look at the seafloor, we are looking at the memory of our planet. We see the scars of ancient earthquakes, the remnants of lost shipwrecks, and the chemical signatures of ice ages long past. We are realizing that the deep ocean is not a separate world. It is the engine room of our own. It is where the carbon is stored, where the heat is moved, and where life found its first spark in the heat of a black smoker. The journey into the deep is far from over. We have seen the ghosts of the water column and the volcanic forges of the seabed. Now we must turn our attention to the inhabitants who connect these worlds, the giants and the travelers. In the next part of our story, we will explore the legends of the deep, the giant and colossal squid, the ancient sharks that outlived the dinosaurs, and the whales that dive miles into the dark to sing where no light reaches. The abyss is deep, But our curiosity is deeper, and the more we uncover, the more we realize that the greatest stories on Earth are the ones hidden beneath the waves. The fire beneath the sea continues to burn. The brine pools remain eerily still, and the tectonic plates continue their slow, grinding dance. The sea floor is a place of absolute darkness, yet it is where we find the brightest clues to our own origins. We are the children of the sea, and to understand the ocean floor is to understand the heart of our home. We have explored the architecture of the abyss, the volcanic cathedrals, the jagged mountain ranges, and the surreal lakes of brine. But a world this vast and ancient does not exist in isolation. It is inhabited by a cast of characters that seem to have stepped directly out of the pages of mythology. For thousands of years, sailors returned from the sea with tales of monsters that could drag ships beneath the waves, of leviathans that sang with the voices of ghosts, and of creatures with minds so alien they defied human understanding. Today, science is revealing that these legends were not just stories. They were glimpses of a reality far more extraordinary than we ever dared to imagine. This is the realm of the Titans, the ancient survivors and the intelligent shadows that rule the blue. The Kraken reborn, the mystery of the squid. For centuries, the Kraken was the ultimate sailor's nightmare. Described as a many-tentacled beast that rose from the depths to crush hulls and drown crews, it was dismissed by modern science as a myth born of fear and exhaustion. That changed in the late 19th century when massive, dead specimens began washing ashore. We realized the Kraken was real, but it had a name: Architeuthis dux, the giant squid. Despite its size, the giant squid remained a ghost. It wasn't until 2012 that a team of Japanese researchers, led by Dr. Tsunemi Kubodera, managed to capture the first ever video footage of a living giant squid in its natural habitat, nearly 600 meters below the surface. What they saw was not a clumsy monster, but a sleek, silver and gold predator of breathtaking elegance. The giant squid can grow to over 13 meters in length, longer than a city bus, with eyes the size of basketballs. These eyes are the largest in the animal kingdom, evolved to detect the faint, bioluminescent disturbances caused by its only true predator, the sperm whale. But even the giant squid is dwarfed by its cousin in the Southern Ocean, the colossal squid, Mesonicoteuthis hamiltoni. While the giant squid is long and slender, the colossal squid is a tank. It is heavier, with eyes that can reach the size of dinner plates, a staggering 30 centimeters across. Unlike the giant squid, which has suckers lined with tiny teeth, the colossal squid has arms armed with rotating razor-sharp hooks. It is a creature of the high-pressure dark, a specialized gladiator that spends its life in the freezing depths near Antarctica. To imagine these two titans, the sperm whale and the colossal squid, locked in a life-or-death struggle, miles beneath the ice, is to realize that the greatest battles on Earth are fought where no human eye will ever see them. The ancient rulers, sharks as living history. Sharks are often portrayed as mindless killing machines, but this view ignores the fact that they are perhaps the most successful survivors in the history of our planet. Sharks have been swimming in the world's oceans for over 400 million years. They existed before the first trees grew on land. They witnessed the rise and fall of the dinosaurs. They have survived 5 mass extinctions. When we look into the eye of a shark, we are looking at a design so perfect that evolution has seen no need to change it for eons. In the ancient past, this design reached terrifying proportions. Between 23 and 3 million years ago, the oceans were ruled by the megalodon, Otodus megalodon. This was a predator that made the great white look like a minnow. Growing up to 18 meters long and weighing over 60 tons, the megalodon had jaws powerful enough to crush the ribcage of a whale. Its teeth, many of which are still found today as fossilized treasures, were larger than a human hand. The megalodon eventually vanished as the oceans cooled and its prey migrated, but its legacy lives on in the deep. Today, the abyss still hides prehistoric relics. The frilled shark, with its eel-like body and 6 pairs of frilly gills, looks like a fossil come to life. It has 300 needle-sharp teeth arranged in 25 rows, designed to snag soft-bodied prey like squid. Or the Greenland shark, which we encountered briefly before. Its story is one of the most profound examples of the deep sea's relationship with time. These sharks are the longest living vertebrates on Earth, with a lifespan that can reach 500 years. Imagine a shark swimming in the cold dark today that was a juvenile when Leonardo da Vinci was painting the Mona Lisa. In the deep, the concept of prehistoric is not a matter of the past, it is the present. The alien mind, the intelligence of the cephalopod. While the giants impress us with their scale, other residents of the deep challenge our definition of intelligence. The octopus is perhaps the closest thing we have to an alien intelligence on Earth. Their biology is fundamentally different from ours. An octopus has 3 hearts and blue blood, which uses copper rather than iron to transport oxygen, a more efficient system in the cold, oxygen-poor depths. But it is their mind that is truly staggering. 2/3 of an octopus's neurons are not in its brain, but in its arms. Each arm can taste, touch, and move independently, effectively thinking for itself. In laboratory settings and aquariums, octopuses have demonstrated the ability to solve complex puzzles, unscrew jars to reach food, and even escape from tanks by navigating through plumbing systems. In the wild, the coconut octopus has been observed carrying coconut shells across the seafloor to use as portable armor, a clear example of tool use once thought to be exclusive to primates. This intelligence is paired with a mastery of disguise. Through the use of chromatophores, pigment-filled cells, and papillae, which can change the texture of their skin, an octopus can vanish into its surroundings in less than a second. They can mimic the color of sand, the texture of coral, or even the appearance of more dangerous animals. They are the ultimate shapeshifters, minds composed of liquid and light, reminding us that intelligence does not always require a skeleton or a human-like brain. The deep divers, the mammalian echo, perhaps the most incredible connection between our world of air and the world of the abyss, is made by the whales. Every day, sperm whales leave the sunlit surface and plunge into the darkness on a quest for food. These are the champion divers of the mammalian world. A sperm whale can dive to depths of nearly 3,000 meters and hold its breath for over 90 minutes. To achieve this, the whale's body undergoes a radical transformation. Its heart rate slows to a mere few beats per minute, and blood is diverted away from non-essential organs to the brain and heart. Their rib cages are flexible, designed to collapse under the pressure that would shatter human bone. In the darkness, the whale sees with sound. It possesses a massive organ in its head called the spermaceti organ, which it uses to focus sound waves into a sonic beam. The clicks produced by a sperm whale are so powerful, reaching 230 decibels, that they can be felt through the hull of a ship. They are the loudest sounds produced by any living thing. A sonar system so sophisticated it can detect a squid the size of a tennis ball from hundreds of meters away in total darkness. But whales are more than just hunters. They are poets of the deep. Humpback whales are famous for their haunting, complex songs, structured sequences of moans, cries, and chirps that can last for 20 minutes and be repeated for hours. These songs are not static, they evolve. Whales in different parts of the ocean sing different dialects, and these songs spread across populations like cultural trends. Scientists have even discovered that dolphins use signature whistles, unique sounds that act as names for individuals. They call to one another, exchange information, and maintain social bonds through a language we are only just beginning to decode. The vertical pulse, the planetary heartbeat. Every night, the Titans and the Shadows participate in the largest migration on Earth. As the sun sets, a hidden tide of life rises from the depths. This is the DL vertical migration. Millions of tons of fish, squid, and crustaceans move toward the surface to feed on plankton, only to retreat back into the safety of the abyss before the first light of dawn. This migration is the heartbeat of our planet. It moves more biomass than any migration of wildebeest or birds on land. It is a synchronized global movement that connects the deepest trenches to the sunlit waves. It also plays a vital role in our survival. By feeding at the surface and excreting in the deep, these creatures move massive amounts of carbon out of the atmosphere and into the seafloor, helping to regulate the Earth's climate. The giants of the sea are not just spectacles to be admired, they are the gardeners of our atmosphere, the fragile legacy. As we study these legends, the colossal squid, the ancient Greenland shark, and the intelligent octopus, we realize that they are more vulnerable than they appear. The deep sea is a world of stability and slowness. In an environment where a shark might take 150 years to reach adulthood, the impact of human activity can be catastrophic. Industrial fishing, deep-sea mining, and the rising temperatures of our oceans are changing the abyss faster than these ancient species can adapt. The footprint of humanity is reaching even the most remote corners of the Titan's kingdom. We have found microplastics in the stomachs of amphipods at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. We have heard the roar of seismic surveys disrupting the songs of whales thousands of miles away. The monsters of the deep are not the ones with the teeth and the tentacles. The true threat comes from above. Yet there is hope. By mapping these habitats and understanding the biology of these extraordinary creatures, we are building a case for their protection. International efforts to create marine protected areas in the high seas are gaining momentum. We are beginning to realize that the health of the ocean's depths is inextricably linked to the health of the land we stand on. We have walked with the giants and peered into the minds of the intelligent shadows. We have seen that the ocean is not a void, but a sophisticated society of survivors. The myths of the Kraken and the Leviathan were simply our ancestors' way of processing the awe and terror of a world they couldn't see. Now that we can see it, that awe has only grown. But our journey is still not complete. We have seen the life and the geology, but what about the secrets buried even deeper? In the next part of our story, we will explore the archive of the abyss, the lost history of humanity that lies at the bottom of the sea. We will search for the sunken cities, the perfectly preserved shipwrecks, and the geological records that tell the story of our planet's violent past. The ocean is more than a habitat. It is the ultimate museum of Earth. The sperm whale continues its dive. The colossal squid waits in the southern dark, and the octopus shifts its color to match the stone. They are the guardians of a world that was here long before us and will, with our care, be here long after. The abyss is deep, but the stories it tells are the ones that define our place in the universe. We have navigated the shifting currents of the water column and stood among the volcanic forges of the seafloor. We have witnessed the titans of the deep and the alien minds that patrol the dark. But the ocean is more than a biological sanctuary or a geological engine. It is the ultimate museum of our species. Beneath the waves lies a vast, silent archive of human ambition, tragedy, and triumph. It is a graveyard of millions of shipwrecks, the resting place of entire civilizations, and a geological diary that has recorded every major climate shift in Earth's history. In the deep, time does not behave as it does on land. In the cold, oxygen-poor and lightless reaches of the abyss, the past is not erased. It is mummified. The drowned metropolis, cities beneath the sea. For centuries, stories of lost continents and sunken cities like Atlantis were relegated to the realm of myth. But as our technology has improved, we have discovered that the drowned world is an archaeological reality. Around the globe, rising sea levels and shifting tectonic plates have swallowed the footprints of human civilization. Perhaps the most breathtaking example is Thonis Herakleion, a city that was once the primary port of entry into Egypt before the founding of Alexandria. For over 1,000 years, it was lost to the sea, forgotten by history and buried beneath the silt of the Mediterranean. It wasn't until the turn of the 21st century that underwater archaeologists discovered the city's remains submerged under 30 feet of water. What they found was a time capsule of the ancient world. Massive statues of pharaohs and gods, gold jewelry, and the wrecks of over 60 ships. The city hadn't been destroyed by fire or war. It had been slowly reclaimed by the water as the land beneath it liquefied during a series of earthquakes and floods. Today, swimming through its stone streets is like visiting a dream, a silent, liquid version of history where stone gods still stand guard over a kingdom of fish. Further east, in the shallow waters off the coast of Greece, lies Pavlopitri. This is the oldest submerged city in the world, dating back over 5,000 years. Unlike other sites where only fragments remain, Pavlopitri is a complete urban layout with streets, courtyards, and tombs. It offers a unique window into the Bronze Age, preserved by the very water that swallowed it. These sites remind us that the boundary between land and sea is fragile. We build our greatest cities on the coast, believing the ground to be solid, yet the ocean is a patient landlord. The deep-sea time capsule. Why the past persists. Why does a ship on land rot into dust in a few decades, while a wooden vessel at the bottom of the sea can remain intact for a millennium? The secret lies in the unique chemistry of the deep. In the cold, dark reaches of the abyss, the biological processes of decay are slowed to a near halt. At depths below 1,000 meters, the water is near freezing and almost entirely devoid of oxygen. Most of the bacteria and organisms that break down wood and organic matter, like the infamous shipworms, cannot survive in these conditions. This is nowhere more evident than in the Black Sea. Because of its unique structure, the lower layers of the Black Sea are anoxic, meaning they contain no oxygen at all. In 2018, researchers discovered an ancient Greek merchant ship lying on the seabed, its masts, rudders, and even the rowing benches still perfectly preserved after more than 2,400 years. It looked as if it had sunk yesterday. This is the archive of the abyss in its purest form, a place where history is frozen in a silent, pressurized vault. Even modern tragedies are preserved in this way. The RMS Titanic, resting 3,800 meters below the North Atlantic, is a haunting monument to this process. While the ship is being slowly consumed by iron-eating bacteria, creating the rusticles that hang like icicles from its hull, the immense pressure and cold have kept the ship's structure recognizable for over a century. Personal items, from leather boots to porcelain cups, remain scattered across the debris field, looking eerily untouched. These objects are the ghosts of a vanished age, kept in suspension by the very environment that claimed the lives of those who owned them. The legend of the triangle, fact versus folklore. No discussion of the ocean's mysteries is complete without mentioning the Bermuda Triangle. This region between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico has been the subject of endless speculation, fueled by the mysterious disappearance of ships and aircraft. While popular culture often leans toward the supernatural, the scientific reality of the triangle is even more fascinating. One of the most compelling scientific theories involves methane hydrates. As we explored in previous chapters, the seafloor stores massive reservoirs of frozen methane. If an underwater landslide or tectonic shift occurs, these methane pockets can erupt, releasing giant bubbles of gas to the surface. If a ship happens to be above such a release, the water beneath it becomes less dense, losing its buoyancy. The ship can literally fall through the ocean, sinking in seconds without warning. Furthermore, the triangle is a region of extreme weather and powerful currents like the Gulf Stream, which can move at 5 miles per hour, fast enough to carry a drifting vessel hundreds of miles off course in a single day. The mystery of the Bermuda Triangle is not one of ghosts, but of a volatile and powerful environment that reminds us of the ocean's raw, unpredictable energy. The Earth's diary, reading the mud. If you were to take a core sample from the bottom of the ocean, a long, vertical tube of mud, you would be holding the most detailed history book ever written. This is the sediment record. For millions of years, a constant rain of marine snow, volcanic ash, and microscopic shells has settled on the seafloor, building up layers of silt miles thick. By analyzing these layers, scientists can reconstruct their Earth's climate going back 65 million years or more. Within the mud are the fossilized remains of foraminifera, tiny shelled organisms. By studying the chemical isotopes in these shells, we can determine the exact temperature of the ocean at the time the creature lived. We have found the iridium layer in deep-sea sediments, the radioactive signature of the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs. We can see the rise and fall of ancient ice ages and the sudden spikes in carbon that preceded past mass extinctions. The deep ocean doesn't just store human history, it stores the history of the planet itself. It is a record that is far more stable than anything found on land, where wind, rain, and tectonic movement eventually erase the past. In the abyss, the story of the Earth is written in dust and preserved in darkness. The conflict, mining versus memory. As we enter a new era of industrialization, this archive is under threat. The polymetallic nodules we discussed earlier, the potato-sized rocks rich in cobalt and nickel, are often found in the same areas as these historical and geological records. Deep-sea mining involves massive machines scraping the sea floor, which would not only destroy fragile ecosystems, but also obliterate the sediment layers that hold our climate's secrets. There is also the question of cultural heritage. With over 3 million shipwrecks scattered across the sea floor, the deep ocean is the world's largest cemetery. Many of these sites are war graves, the final resting places of thousands of sailors. As companies look to the deep for resources, we are faced with a profound moral question. Is the mineral wealth of the abyss worth the destruction of our planet's history? Once these sediment layers are stirred up, once the ancient wrecks are crushed, that information is lost forever. The voices of the deep, listening to the past. Finally, the archive has a voice. Sound, as we know, travels exceptionally well in the deep. Scientists using underwater microphones have picked up the echoes of the past. They can hear the rumble of distant underwater volcanoes that erupted centuries ago, or the haunting songs of whales that have been singing the same melodies for generations. In the 1960s, the US Navy developed the SOSUS, Sound Surveillance System, a network of underwater microphones designed to track Soviet submarines. Today, that same technology is used by archaeologists and geologists to listen to the breath of the ocean. They can detect the movement of glaciers, the shifting of tectonic plates, and even the sounds of distant storms. The ocean is not just a visual archive, it is an acoustic one. We have walked through the stone streets of Thonis Herakleion and peered into the anoxic vaults of the Black Sea. We have seen how the mud of the abyss tells the story of the dinosaurs, and how the methane of the triangle can swallow ships whole. The deep ocean is the ultimate guardian of Earth's memory. It is a place where nothing is ever truly lost, only hidden. As we conclude this chapter of our journey, we realize that the ocean is not a barrier to our history, but its keeper. Every shipwreck is a story, every sediment core is a timeline, and every sunken city is a reminder of our own vulnerability. We are a species that lives on the edge of a vast watery archive. To understand where we are going, we must first look down at where we have been. But our exploration is not over. We have seen the past, but what about the future? In the next part of our story, we will look at the ocean's life support system. We will explore how the deep sea regulates our oxygen, how it captures our carbon, and the cutting-edge technology we are using to protect this fragile world. The abyss is deep, and its lessons are vital for the survival of the world above. The statues of Egypt remain still in the Mediterranean dark. The sediment layers continue to accumulate, and the Titanic continues its slow, rust-colored descent into the earth. The archive is open, and the sea is waiting to tell us its secrets. We often speak of the rainforests, the Amazon, the Congo, the dense emerald canopies of Southeast Asia as the lungs of our planet. We have been taught since childhood that trees are our primary guardians, exhaling the oxygen we need and inhaling the carbon we produce. But this is only half the truth. To find the true engine of Earth's life support system, we must look away from the green and towards the blue. Beneath the waves lies a sophisticated global machinery of biology and physics that regulates the very chemistry of our atmosphere. The ocean doesn't just hold the majority of our water. It produces the majority of our air, captures our waste, and balances our temperature. It is the silent, liquid heart of the biosphere, the microscopic powerhouse, phytoplankton. Every second breath you take is a gift from the sea. This is not a poetic exaggeration, it is a biological fact. More than 50% of the oxygen in our atmosphere is produced by microscopic organisms drifting in the upper layers of the ocean. These are the phytoplankton. These tiny, single-celled plants, so small that millions can inhabit a single teaspoon of seawater, are the most important forest on Earth. Through the process of photosynthesis, phytoplankton capture the energy of the sun and convert carbon dioxide into organic matter, releasing oxygen as a byproduct. While a single tree in the Amazon might take decades to grow and contribute to the atmosphere, phytoplankton work on a massive, rapid scale. When the conditions are right, they form vast blooms that cover thousands of square miles of the ocean's surface, turning the sapphire water into swirls of emerald and turquoise that are visible from space. These blooms produce more oxygen than all the world's tropical rainforests combined. Without these invisible drifters, the air we breathe would be thin, toxic, and unable to sustain human life. The biological pump, the abyss as a carbon vault. But the ocean's role as a life support system goes beyond oxygen production. It is also our greatest defense against climate change. Since the Industrial Revolution, humanity has pumped billions of tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. If all of that carbon had stayed in the air, our planet would already be uninhabitable. The reason it is not is that the ocean has absorbed nearly 30% of that carbon and over 90% of the resulting heat. This process is driven by the biological pump. When phytoplankton die, or when they are eaten and excreted by larger animals, the carbon they captured from the atmosphere begins a long, slow journey downward. This is the marine snow we discussed in earlier chapters. As this organic detritus sinks, it moves from the sunlit surface into the dark, cold depths of the abyss. Once this carbon reaches the seafloor, it is buried beneath layers of sediment, where it can be locked away for thousands or even millions of years. The deep sea is a planetary vault, a high-pressure warehouse that stores the byproducts of our industrial civilization. Every whale that dies and sinks to the bottom, every school of lanternfish that migrates vertically, and every microscopic flake of snow is a cog in this carbon-capturing machine. The abyss is not a passive void. It is an active biological filter that prevents our atmosphere from overheating. The global conveyor belt, the thermostat of the world. The ocean is also the planet's primary thermostat. This is achieved through the thermohaline circulation, more commonly known as the global conveyor belt. This is a massive, invisible river of water that moves silently through every ocean basin, connecting the surface to the deep and the poles to the tropics. The engine of this conveyor belt is located in the North Atlantic, near Greenland and Iceland. Here, the warm water of the Gulf Stream meets the frigid air of the Arctic. As the water cools and evaporates, it becomes saltier and denser. This cold, heavy water eventually sinks to the bottom, creating a massive downward flow. The underwater waterfalls we explored in Part 3. This sinking water then flows south along the seafloor, traveling all the way to Antarctica before looping back into the Pacific and Indian Oceans. A single drop of water can take over 1,000 years to complete this journey. Along the way, the conveyor belt distributes heat, salt, and nutrients around the globe. It is the reason that Northern Europe is mild and habitable rather than a frozen tundra. It is the reason that the tropics do not boil and the poles do not completely freeze. The deep-sea currents are the planetary circulatory system, moving the Earth's thermal energy from where it is abundant to where it is needed. The fragile balance, acidification and deoxygenation. However, this life support system is under unprecedented stress. Because the ocean is absorbing so much of our carbon dioxide, its very chemistry is changing. When carbon dioxide dissolves in seawater, it forms carbonic acid, leading to a process called ocean acidification. This is a quiet crisis. As the water becomes more acidic, it becomes harder for organisms like corals, oysters, and even some types of phytoplankton to build their shells and skeletons. We are effectively dissolving the foundations of the marine food web. Simultaneously, the ocean is losing its breath. As surface waters warm, they become less efficient at absorbing oxygen from the air. Warmer water is also more buoyant, which means it doesn't sink as easily, slowing down the global conveyor belt. This creates oxygen minimum zones, vast dead zones, in the deep where oxygen levels have dropped so low that most marine life cannot survive. These zones are expanding, creeping out from the coastlines and into the open sea, threatening the trillion-strong schools of fish that rely on the deep as a sanctuary. The deep sea buffers methane and heat. The abyss also protects us from climatic tipping points. As we have seen, the seafloor stores massive amounts of methane hydrates, frozen gas trapped in ice. Methane is a greenhouse gas 30 times more potent than carbon dioxide. If the deep ocean were to warm by just a few degrees, these frozen fire deposits could melt, releasing a methane bomb that would trigger catastrophic runaway warming. For now, the cold and pressure of the deep act as a stabilizer, a biological brake on the pace of global change. Furthermore, the deep ocean has a staggering thermal inertia. It takes a massive amount of energy to change the temperature of miles deep water. This inertia has bought humanity time. It has absorbed the shock of our emissions, acting as a planetary sponge for heat. But a sponge has its limits. We are beginning to see marine heat waves that reach deep into the water column, disrupting the delicate balance of life that has existed for millennia. The invisible guardians, seagrass and mangroves. While much of the work happens in the abyss, the life support system begins at the shore. Seagrass meadows and mangrove forests are the unsung heroes of the blue economy. Though they cover less than 1% of the seafloor, they are responsible for capturing carbon at a rate 30 times faster than tropical rainforests. Their roots stabilize the coastlines against the rising tides and storm surges we discussed in Part 5, while their blades act as nurseries for the fish that will eventually migrate into the deep. Protecting these coastal blue carbon habitats is the first line of defense in maintaining the health of the entire ocean. When a mangrove forest is destroyed for development, or a seagrass meadow is lost to pollution, we aren't just losing a habitat. We are ripping a hole in the planet's life support system, the future of the blue machine. The more we understand about the ocean's role as a life support system, the clearer it becomes that we cannot fix the climate without protecting the deep. We are entering an era of ocean-based solutions. Scientists are exploring ways to enhance the biological pump, to restore seagrass meadows on a global scale, and to use the thermal energy of the deep as a source of clean, renewable power. But these technologies must be balanced with caution. The deep ocean is a world of slowness and stability. It is not a place that responds well to sudden industrial-scale intervention. The lesson of the planetary lungs is one of interconnectedness. What we do to the atmosphere ripples into the abyss. What happens in the abyss determines the future of the atmosphere. We have looked at the phytoplankton that give us every second breath. We have followed the biological pump as it buries our carbon in the mud, and we have traced the global conveyor belt as it moves the heat of the world. The ocean is not just a destination for explorers or a resource for industry. It is the reason we are alive. It is the complex, liquid machinery that keeps our blue marble habitable. As we conclude this chapter, we realize that the life support system is not something external to us. We are part of it. The carbon in our bodies was once in the atmosphere. The oxygen in our blood was once exhaled by a microscopic plant in the middle of the Pacific. To protect the ocean is to protect ourselves. Our journey is reaching its final phases. We have seen the biology, the geology, the history, and the physics of the deep. In the next part of our story, we will look at the human connection. We will explore the cutting-edge technology of ROVs and AUVs, the legal battle for the high seas, and the vision for a future where humanity and the abyss exist in a sustainable partnership. The deep is no longer just a place of mystery. It is a place of responsibility. The phytoplankton continue to bloom. The conveyor belt continues its 1,000-year loop, and the carbon continues its silent descent. The life support system is running, and the sea is waiting for us to ensure it never stops. We have journeyed through the biology, the geology, and the hidden history of the ocean. But a fundamental question remains. How do we actually know any of this? How has a fragile species like ours, composed mostly of water and soft tissue, managed to peer into a world that, by all laws of physics, should have remained eternally hidden? The abyss cannot be conquered by brute force. It can only be outmaneuvered. To see what is concealed beneath miles of crushing darkness, we had to create more than just tools. We had to create extensions of our own senses. We created eyes in the abyss. This is the story of a technological evolution that allowed us to transform telepresence into an art form and robots into our sovereign ambassadors in the most hostile environment we have ever encountered. The barrier of impossibility. Why we send the machines. Before we can appreciate the grace of a modern deep-sea drone, we must understand the staggering scale of the engineering challenge. The ocean is not merely deep water. It is an environment that actively resists intrusion. The first and most obvious hurdle is pressure. At a depth of 6,000 meters, the average depth of the world's oceans, the pressure is approximately 600 atmospheres. This is enough force to turn a hollow steel cylinder into a crumpled piece of scrap metal in a heartbeat. Every camera housing, every sensor, every lens must be protected by titanium alloys or sapphire crystals of incredible thickness. There is no room for error. The smallest microscopic flaw in a seal can lead to an implosive catastrophe. The second hurdle is light. Water absorbs light far more efficiently than air. Even the most powerful artificial floodlights can only cut through the midnight gloom for a few dozen yards. Imagine trying to map the entire city of New York while holding only a dim pocket flashlight and moving through a fog so thick you can barely see your own feet. This is the reality of deep-sea exploration. To visualize the sea floor, we had to abandon sight in favor of sound, using multi-beam sonars that translate acoustic echoes into high-definition digital terrain. The third hurdle is communication. The radio waves that allow us to control rovers on Mars or speak to satellites in high orbit simply do not function in salt water. It is a conductive medium that swallows electromagnetic signals. At a depth of several miles, there is no Wi-Fi, no GPS, and no cellular signal. Every machine we send down must either be tethered to a ship by a thin but incredibly strong fiber optic cable, or it must possess the spark of artificial intelligence to make its own decisions in the silent dark. From steel spheres to telepresence. The path to modern robotics began with a form of brave, calculated madness. In the 1930s, pioneers like William Beebe and Otis Barton descended in the bathysphere, a simple steel ball suspended by a single cable. It was a one-way trip if that cable snapped. They peered through fused quartz portholes and dictated their observations over a telephone line to the surface. It was the birth of deep-sea optics, but it was a terrifyingly fragile way to conduct science. The real revolution occurred when we decided to remove the human from the cockpit. Human dives are expensive, dangerous, and severely limited by the clock of life support. Robots, however, do not need to breathe. They do not suffer from the bends, and they can work for days without rest. This gave rise to the ROV, Remotely Operated Vehicle. The ROV, the tethered avatar. A modern ROV is not just a machine, it is a high-tech avatar of the human soul. Imagine a vehicle the size of a large SUV, bristling with 4K and 8K ultra-high-definition cameras, hydraulic manipulators capable of lifting a heavy rock or delicately cradling a gossamer-thin jellyfish, and a suite of sensors that analyze the water's chemistry every millisecond. The defining feature of the ROV is its umbilical cord. This is a long, reinforced tether that connects the robot to the research vessel on the surface. Through this tether, we pump massive amounts of electricity to power the robot's blinding LED arrays and receive a backflow of real-time video data. The pilots sit on the ship in a darkened control room, surrounded by dozens of glowing monitors. This is where telepresence happens. The pilot feels as though they are actually down there, 4 miles below the waves. When the robot's arm touches the sea floor, force feedback sensors allow the operator to feel the resistance of the mud. Machines like Deep Discoverer or Hercules have become the stars of the scientific world. Because of them, Millions of people around the globe can watch a live stream of a new species being discovered or a hydrothermal vent being explored for the first time. It is the democratization of the abyss. The deep is no longer a secret kept by the elite few. It is a shared experience for all of humanity. The AUV, the independent hunter. However, the ROV's tether is also its greatest limitation. It can snag on rocks. It creates massive drag in the currents. It limits how far a ship can travel. The future belongs to the AUV, Autonomous Underwater Vehicle. These are the drones of the deep. An AUV is not tied to a ship. Before it is launched, scientists load a mission program into its brain, and then it is released into the void. These vehicles are often shaped like torpedoes for maximum efficiency, and can spend weeks at a time cruising the abyss. Using advanced sonar, they scan the seafloor, creating 3D maps with centimeter-level precision. The most exciting development in AUV technology is the integration of machine learning. Modern drones use computer vision to recognize objects. If an AUV detects something unusual, perhaps the silhouette of a shipwreck or a dense cluster of biological life, it can autonomously decide to deviate from its path, swim closer, and take high-resolution photographs. It is no longer just a tool, it is an independent explorer. Projects like Seabed 2030 aim to deploy fleets of these autonomous hunters to ensure that by the end of this decade, we have a complete and detailed map of the entire planetary seafloor. The art of lighting the void. One of the most difficult tasks remains the simple act of seeing. In the abyss, there is no ambient light. There is only the harsh glare of a spotlight or absolute darkness. This creates extreme contrast and deep shadows that make it difficult for scientists to judge distance or color. To solve this, engineers developed lighting systems synchronized with the camera's shutter, reducing the backscatter caused by marine snow. We also use laser scanning. A robot emits a grid of green laser lines onto an object, be it a coral reef or a jagged volcanic ridge. The camera captures the distortion of these lines, and a computer instantly builds a perfect 3D model of the target. This allows scientists to measure creatures and geological structures with a precision that was impossible just a decade ago. We can now study the ghosts of the deep, not just as images, but as digital replicas that can be analyzed in a laboratory on land. Virtual reality, diving without getting wet. Visualization technology has reached a point where we are creating digital twins of the ocean floor. Using a process called photogrammetry, the assembly of thousands of individual photos into a single, cohesive 3D model, we can recreate the wreck of the Titanic or a field of hydrothermal vents in virtual reality. Scientists can now put on a VR headset and walk across a section of the seafloor that is thousands of miles away and miles deep. They can study the placement of stones, the tracks left by animals in the silt, and the growth patterns of ancient corals without ever risking a piece of equipment. This is the future of marine archaeology and biology. The robot collects the data, and then generations of researchers can explore the site in a virtual simulation that never decays. Cabled observatories, a permanent presence. Exploration, however, is not just about visiting a place once. To truly understand the ocean, we must observe it constantly. To do this, we are building deep-sea observatories. These are networks of cables and sensors laid across the seafloor for hundreds of miles. Imagine a power outlet on the bottom of the ocean, into which we plug cameras, seismographs, and chemical analyzers. These systems work for years, recording every shift of a tectonic plate, every change in temperature, and every creature that swims by. Observatories like Neptune off the coast of Canada allow us to hear the pulse of the planet in real time. We can watch a submarine volcano wake up or track a migrating pod of whales without ever sending a ship to the site. The next frontier: soft robots and AI swarms. What does the future hold? Traditional robots are made of rigid, heavy metal, but we are learning from nature itself. Researchers are now developing soft robots, machines made of flexible polymers that mimic the movements of jellyfish or octopuses. These robots do not fear the pressure because they have no internal voids to collapse. They can slide into narrow rock crevices and gently grasp fragile organisms without causing a single scratch. And then there are AI swarms. In the coming years, we will send hives of small, inexpensive drones into the ocean. They will communicate with one another like a school of fish, sharing data, coordinating their search patterns, and solving problems as a single, collective intelligence. This will change the scale of our discoveries. Instead of one eye in the abyss, we will have thousands. Technology is what transformed the ocean from a mystical barrier into an open book. We are no longer blind in the dark. Because of titanium, fiber optics, and algorithms, we have become the first species in Earth's history to extend its consciousness beyond its biological limits. But it is vital to remember, these eyes are only instruments. What we see through these lenses brings with it a massive responsibility. The more we learn about the complexity and the fragility of deep-sea ecosystems, the clearer it becomes that our technological power must be matched by our wisdom. We built the eyes to see the abyss. Now we must use them to protect it. In the next stage of our journey, we will look at those who inspired these machines, the living navigators of the ocean who have held the secrets of movement and survival for millions of years. We will explore the biology of the great migrators and the medicine hidden in the deep. We have built machines of titanium and glass to peer into the darkness. We have laid miles of fiber optic cable to listen to the Earth's tectonic pulse. But long before the first human map was ever drawn, long before the first satellite orbited our world, the inhabitants of the ocean had already mastered the impossible. They had solved the mystery of global navigation in a featureless world. They had developed senses that allow them to see the invisible, feel the electricity of life, and cross entire ocean basins with the precision of a laser. This is the story of the living navigators. It is a journey into the biological blueprints that are currently revolutionizing human technology, from the way we build our aircraft to the way we fight incurable diseases. The deep sea is not just a place we explore. It is a library of billions of years of research and development, and we have only just begun to turn the first page. The great mystery: navigation in a world without landmarks. Imagine for a moment that you are a leatherback sea turtle, no larger than a coin, crawling across a moonlit beach for the first time. Ahead of you lies the vast, crashing chaos of the Atlantic. There are no signposts in the water. There are no landmarks in the open blue. Yet, that tiny hatchling will embark on a journey that spans 10,000 miles, circling the entire ocean basin, only to return decades later to the exact same few yards of sand where it was born. How is this possible? For decades, this question baffled the scientific community. The answer, we now know, lies in a sense that humans simply do not possess: magnetoreception. The Earth is wrapped in a magnetic field, a silent, invisible grid of lines that stretch from pole to pole. Marine navigators, from the great whales to the smallest salmon, have evolved biological compasses. They possess microscopic crystals of magnetite in their tissues that act like tiny needles, allowing them to sense the intensity and angle of the Earth's magnetic pull. To a sea turtle, the ocean is not a featureless void. It is a rich, textured map of magnetic highways. They can sense their latitude and longitude by the subtle shifts in the magnetic field. This is a navigation system that never runs out of battery and never loses its signal. It is the ultimate global positioning system written into the very DNA of the wild. By studying these living compasses, engineers are now looking for ways to create magnetic navigation for our own aircraft, providing a backup for when our GPS satellites fail or are jammed. The turtles are teaching us how to find our way home using the planet's own energy. The electrical aura, the sixth sense of the predator. While the turtles follow the magnetic grid, the predators of the deep have developed a sense that is even more intimate. Consider the shark. Beyond its legendary sense of smell and its keen eyesight, a shark possesses a sixth sense, known as electroreception. If you look closely at the snout of a great white or a hammerhead, you will see hundreds of tiny black pores. These are the ampullae of Lorenzini. These are gel-filled canals that act as ultra-sensitive voltmeters. Every living creature, including you, is an electrical being. Your heart produces an electrical pulse. Your muscles fire with electrical signals. In the salt water of the ocean, which is a perfect conductor, these signals are like beacons. A shark can detect the heartbeat of a flatfish buried beneath a foot of sand. It can sense the electrical aura of a prey animal, even if that animal is perfectly camouflaged and motionless. This sense is so precise that a shark can detect a change in voltage equivalent to a single AA battery connected to electrodes 1,000 miles apart. It is a level of sensitivity that defies human comprehension. This electric vision allows sharks to hunt in total darkness through murky silt and across the vast emptiness of the open sea. Today, bionic engineers are using the shark's blueprint to develop underwater sensors for our own robots, allowing them to feel the presence of obstacles or infrastructure in the dark without the need for cameras or light. The architect's blueprint, biomimicry, and the blue tech. The ocean is the world's oldest laboratory, and its inventions are far more efficient than anything we have created in our short industrial history. This has given rise to the field of biomimicry, the art of copying nature's designs to solve human problems. Take, for example, the humpback whale. Despite being the size of a school bus, these titans are remarkably agile, able to make tight acrobatic turns while hunting. Scientists discovered the secret on the leading edge of the whale's pectoral fins. They aren't smooth. They are covered in large, jagged bumps called tubercles. These bumps channel the flow of water, preventing turbulence and providing massive amounts of lift. This discovery has revolutionized the way we build wind turbines and airplane wings. By adding whale bumps to our blades, we have made them quieter, more efficient, and able to generate power at much lower wind speeds. Then there is the shark skin. If you were to touch the skin of a shark, it would feel like sandpaper. Under a microscope, you would see that it is covered in millions of tiny tooth-like scales called dermal denticles. These structures do two things. They reduce drag, allowing the shark to move through the water with almost no friction, and they prevent bacteria and barnacles from sticking to the surface. Today, we are coating the hulls of ships with materials that mimic shark skin, allowing them to slide through the water with less fuel and without the need for toxic anti-fouling paints. We are even using shark skin surfaces in hospitals. Because bacteria cannot find a foothold on the microscopic ridges of the denticles, these surfaces remain naturally sterile without the use of harsh chemicals. The shark, long feared as a predator, has become a protector in the halls of medicine. The pharmaceutical abyss. Drugs from the deep. Perhaps the most significant secret of the deep sea is not what it can teach us about engineering, but what it can teach us about survival on a cellular level. We are currently facing a global crisis of antibiotic resistance, and we are running out of new drugs on land. But the ocean, specifically the deep ocean, is a treasure trove of untapped chemistry. In the abyss, competition for space and resources is brutal. Creatures like sea sponges, tunicates, and bryozoans cannot move. They are rooted to the spot. To defend themselves against predators and infections, they have spent hundreds of millions of years developing the most potent chemical weapons on Earth. They produce secondary metabolites, complex molecules that can stop a cell from dividing or pierce the armor of a virus. The results are already saving lives. The drug halaven, used to treat advanced breast cancer, was derived from a chemical found in a simple black sea sponge. Prialt, a painkiller 100 times more potent than morphine, but without the risk of addiction, comes from the venom of the cone snail. Right now, scientists are exploring the deepest trenches, the Mariana and the Kermadec, to look for extremophiles. These are microbes that live at pressures that would crush any other form of life. Because they live in such extreme conditions, their chemistry is unlike anything found on land. We are finding molecules that can dissolve the protein plaques associated with Alzheimer's disease, and compounds that can kill the most superbugs in our hospitals. The deep sea is a pharmacy of the future, a pressurized laboratory where the cures for our most devastating diseases are waiting to be found. The sound of wisdom, acoustic navigation. We must return once more to the whales, the most sophisticated acoustic navigators on the planet. As we saw in Part 4, whales use sound to communicate across oceans, but they also use it as a map. Scientists have discovered that whales may use the topography of sound to navigate. The ocean floor has its own acoustic signature. The sound of waves crashing on a distant reef, the rumble of a mid-ocean ridge, and the specific echoes of a submarine canyon create a soundscape that whales can remember. They don't just see the world, they hear the landscape. This is acoustic mapping. By listening to the ambient noise of the ocean, a whale can determine its position with startling accuracy. As the ocean becomes noisier due to human activity, shipping, sonar, and seismic testing, This living map is being blurred. It is as if we are spray painting over the road signs of the sea. Understanding how whales navigate is essential for our own survival as we learn to share the blue without destroying the very senses that keep these ancient travelers alive. The octopus, the master of materials. Finally, we look to the octopus and the cuttlefish for the future of soft robotics and stealth materials. An octopus has no skeleton. It is a masterpiece of fluid engineering. It can squeeze through a hole the size of its own eye and change its shape to mimic a rock, a plant, or even another animal. Engineers are now creating soft robots inspired by cephalopods. These robots have no gears or rigid joints. They are moved by air or fluid, making them perfect for delicate surgical procedures inside the human body, or for exploring the fragile coral reefs of the deep without causing damage. We are even developing adaptive camouflage fabrics that change color and texture in real time, just like the skin of a cuttlefish. The ocean is teaching us how to be flexible, how to be invisible, and how to move with a grace that our rigid machines have never known. We have followed the magnetic pull with the sea turtle and felt the electrical aura of the shark. We have seen how a whale's fin can improve our energy and how a sea sponge can fight our cancers. The deep sea is not just a dark place at the bottom of the world. It is a reservoir of wisdom. Every creature we have discussed has survived for millions of years by solving the very problems we are struggling with today: how to navigate, how to heal, and how to live sustainably. The lesson of the living navigators is one of humility. We often think of ourselves as the masters of technology, but we are merely students in a classroom that is 4 billion years old. The ocean is the teacher, and its curriculum is written in the blood, bone, and chemistry of the deep. Our journey is nearing its end. We have seen the biology, the technology, the history, and the science of the abyss. In the next part of our story, we will look at the human responsibility. We will explore the legal battles for the high seas, the impact of plastic in the trenches, and the vision for a future where the ocean remains a wild, protected, and mysterious heart of our planet. The abyss is deep, but so is our connection to it. The turtle continues its 10,000-mile journey. The shark senses the pulse of the reef, and the deep-sea sponge quietly produces the medicine of tomorrow. They are the navigators of the blue, and they are showing us the way forward. For most of human history, we looked at the ocean as an infinite, invulnerable void. It was a place where we could cast our secrets and our waste, believing that the vastness of the water would simply swallow the evidence of our existence. We treated the deep sea as a separate planet, a realm so remote and so hostile that it remained untouched by the industrial storms of the surface. But as we push our titanium eyes deeper into the dark, we are realizing a sobering and uncomfortable truth. There is no such thing as an untouched abyss. The footprint of humanity has reached the bottom of the world long before our curiosity did. In the deepest scars of the Earth's crust, miles beneath the waves, the echoes of our industrial civilization are already being felt. This is the story of the human footprint, a record of how our actions on land are rewriting the chemistry and the future of the deep. The future of the deep. The myth of isolation, plastic in the void. Imagine descending nearly 7 miles into the Mariana Trench, to a place where the pressure is 1,000 times greater than at the surface, and the temperature hovers just above freezing. You are in the Challenger Deep, the most remote environment on our planet. You expect to find alien life, ancient mud, and the pristine silence of eternity. But in 2018, when explorer Victor Vescovo reached the bottom, he found something that didn't belong: a plastic bag and candy wrappers. This discovery was a symbolic shock to the scientific community. It shattered the illusion that the deep sea is isolated from human activity. Plastic has become the defining geological marker of our age, the Anthropocene. Because plastic is designed to be indestructible, it does not disappear. It simply breaks down into smaller and smaller fragments known as microplastics. These particles are often the same size and color as the marine snow that feeds the deep sea ecosystem. Scientists have now found microplastics in the stomachs of amphipods, tiny, shrimp-like scavengers at the bottom of the deepest trenches on Earth. These creatures are the foundation of the deep-sea food web. When they ingest plastic, the toxins associated with these materials, lead, mercury, and persistent organic pollutants, enter the biological cycle of the abyss. The deep sea is no longer a pristine sanctuary. It has become a planetary sink, a high-pressure trash bin for the non-biodegradable legacy of the surface world. The chemicals shadow, toxins in the dark. But the footprint of humanity is not just visible. It is invisible and chemical. In the 1960s and 70s, the world used massive amounts of industrial chemicals like PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyls, and PBDES, flame retardants. These chemicals were eventually banned because of their toxicity, but they did not vanish. They washed into the rivers, flowed into the oceans, and eventually settled in the deep sea sediments. Because the deep sea is cold and lacks sunlight, these chemicals do not break down. Instead, they accumulate in the fatty tissues of deep-sea organisms through a process called bioaccumulation. Recent studies have shown that the levels of PCBs in scavengers at the bottom of the Mariana Trench are actually higher than those found in animals living in the most polluted rivers in industrial China. This is a terrifying irony. The most remote creatures on Earth are carrying the heaviest chemical burden of our industrial past. In the deep, where life moves slowly and evolution is a gradual process of millions of years, these sudden chemical shocks are a biological catastrophe. We are poisoning the inhabitants of the abyss before we even have the chance to give them a name. The acoustic fog, noise pollution in the blue. While we often describe the ocean as the silent world, we have turned it into a cacophony of industrial noise. For marine mammals like whales and dolphins, sound is their primary sense. It is their sight, their communication, and their navigation. But the modern ocean is filled with an acoustic fog. The roar of giant container ships, the rhythmic thumping of oil drilling, and the explosive blasts of seismic surveys for oil and gas can travel for thousands of miles through the water. For a blue whale or a sperm whale, this noise is not just an annoyance, it is a direct threat to their survival. It masks their songs, prevents them from finding mates, and can even cause physical damage to their internal organs. In some cases, the intensity of human-made sound is so great that it causes whales to panic, surfacing too quickly and suffering from the equivalent of the bends, or stranding themselves on beaches. We have effectively blinded the inhabitants of the sea with a wall of noise, disrupting a sonic environment that has been stable for millions of years. The deep sea, once a place of haunting ancient songs, is now filled with the mechanical echoes of global trade. The warming abyss, climate change in the deep. We often think of climate change as an atmospheric problem, a story of rising temperatures on land and melting glaciers in the Arctic. But the ocean is the planet's primary heat sponge. It has absorbed over 90% of the excess heat generated by our carbon emissions. For a long time, we believed that this heat was confined to the surface. But we are now realizing that the warming is reaching the deep. As the surface waters warm, the global conveyor belt of ocean currents, the thermohaline circulation, is beginning to slow down. This is the circulation that moves heat, salt, and oxygen from the surface into the abyss. If the conveyor belt slows, the deep sea begins to lose its breath. We are seeing the expansion of oxygen minimum zones, vast dead zones in the deep, where oxygen levels have dropped so low that most complex life cannot survive. This deoxygenation is a quiet killer. It forces deep-sea species into smaller and smaller habitats, disrupting migration patterns and destabilizing the food web. The abyss may be out of sight, but it is not out of reach of the warming sun. The heat of our industrial age is slowly but surely penetrating the coldest corners of the world. The mining dilemma, the Clarion-Clipperton Zone. Perhaps the most immediate threat to the deep sea is the rise of a new industry, deep-sea mining. As we transition to a green economy, the demand for minerals like cobalt, nickel, and manganese, essential for electric car batteries and smartphones, is skyrocketing. These minerals are abundant on the seafloor in the form of polymetallic nodules. The primary target for this industry is the Clarion-Clipperton Zone, CCZ, a vast stretch of the Pacific abyssal plain between Hawaii and Mexico. This area is home to billions of these nodules, but it is also one of the most stable and biodiverse habitats on Earth. Deep-sea mining involves massive, tractor-sized robots crawling across the seafloor, scraping up the nodules and everything else in their path. This process creates thick sediment plumes, clouds of silt that can drift for hundreds of miles, smothering the filter-feeding organisms of the abyss. These ecosystems take millions of years to form and grow. A single mining operation could destroy a habitat that has been stable since the age of the dinosaurs. We are faced with a profound moral paradox. Do we save the climate of the world above by destroying the ancient, fragile world below? The shifting balance, the high seas and the law. The majority of the deep sea lies in international waters, often called the high seas. This is a realm that belongs to no single nation, but to all of humanity. For decades, it was a Wild West where there were very few rules and even fewer protections. However, we are seeing a historic shift in the legal framework of our oceans. In 2023, the United Nations agreed on the High Seas Treaty, a landmark international agreement designed to protect the biodiversity of international waters. This treaty aims to turn 30% of the world's oceans into protected areas by 2030. It is a recognition that the deep sea is not just a resource to be exploited, but a heritage to be protected. But legal frameworks are only as strong as their enforcement. Monitoring the deep sea is an immense technological challenge. We need the same robots and AUVs we discussed in Part 7 to act as park rangers for the abyss, ensuring that protected zones remain free from illegal fishing and unregulated mining. The battle for the future of the deep is being fought in the boardrooms of corporations and the halls of the UN, but the consequences will be written in the mud of the seafloor. The legacy of the Anthropocene. The ocean floor is the ultimate historian. As we have seen, it collects the record of our planet layer by layer. Future geologists, millions of years from now, will drill into the seafloor and find a distinct layer in the sediment. It will be a layer filled with microplastics, chemical residues, and the fossilized remains of species that vanished during our watch. This will be the Anthropocene layer, the physical evidence of our impact on the Earth. But this legacy is not yet set in stone. We are the first generation of humans to truly understand the deep sea. And we are the last generation that has the chance to protect it before it is too late. The deep sea is a world of immense resilience, but it is also a world of extreme slowness. It cannot heal at the speed of our destruction. It requires us to adopt a deep time perspective, to think in centuries and millennia rather than quarterly profits and election cycles. The moral responsibility, stewardship of the abyss. The journey through the ocean has shown us a world of breathtaking wonder. We have seen the glowing jellies, the volcanic forges, and the intelligent minds of the cephalopods. We have seen that the ocean is the heartbeat of our planet, the engine of our climate, and the source of our oxygen. To allow this world to be destroyed by negligence or greed would be more than just a scientific loss. It would be a failure of our responsibility as the planet's dominant species. We are the stewards of the abyss. We are the only creatures with the power to see this world and the power to destroy it. The footprint of humanity is deep, but it doesn't have to be a scar. We can choose a different path. We can choose to be the generation that stopped the acoustic fog, that cleaned the plastic from the waves, and that decided the ancient life of the Clarion-Clipperton Zone was worth more than the minerals beneath it. We have seen the plastic bag in the trench and heard the roar of the ships in the blue. We have followed the chemicals as they accumulate in the fatty tissues of the titans and watched as the oxygen levels in the deep begin to fade. The deep sea is sounding an alarm, and it is a message we cannot afford to ignore. But our journey is not a tragedy. It is an invitation to action. The ocean is still vast, it is still mysterious, and it is still pulsing with life. For every plastic bag we find, there are 1,000 new species waiting to be discovered. For every mining robot we build, there is a new conservation treaty being signed. In the final parts of our story, we will look at the vision for the future. We will explore the blue economy, the restoration of our coastal habitats, and the ultimate promise of the abyss. The deep sea is not just our past, it is the key to our survival. It is the heart of the blue marble, and its future is in our hands. The current of the global conveyor belt continues to turn. The sediment layers continue to accumulate, and the whales continue to sing through the fog. The footprint is there, but the path forward is still ours to choose. The abyss is deep, but so is our capacity for wonder and for change. We have spent our journey exploring the ocean as a sanctuary of life, a vault of history, and a geological engine. But as we stand at the threshold of the mid-21st century, a new narrative is emerging, one that moves beyond the ocean as a mere destination for exploration and into a realm of deep economic and existential partnership. For thousands of years, humanity treated the ocean as an infinite mine and a bottomless sink. We extracted what we wanted and discarded what we didn't, assuming the blue was too vast to be broken. But today, we are witnessing the birth of the blue economy. This is not just a buzzword for industrial growth. It is a fundamental shift in how we value the world's waters. It is the vision of a future where we harness the ocean's energy, food, and medicine, not through conquest, but through restorative harmony. The abyss is no longer just a mystery. It is the foundation of our future survival. The great transition, from extraction to regeneration. To understand the blue economy, we must first look at the traditional brown economy of the sea. For centuries, our relationship with the ocean was defined by extraction, oil, gas, and industrial-scale fishing. We used massive bottom trawlers to scrape the seafloor, destroying ancient coral forests for a single catch, and we drilled into the depths for fossil fuels that warmed the very atmosphere we breathe. The blue economy flips this script. It recognizes that the ocean is an asset worth roughly $24 trillion, a figure that rivals the largest economies on land. But unlike a bank account that we simply drain, the blue economy treats the ocean as a living endowment. If we protect the principle, the biodiversity and the health of the ecosystems, the interest, the food, oxygen and energy will sustain us forever. We are moving from a world of taking to a world of tending. This transition is being powered by a suite of revolutionary technologies that are turning the tides and the currents into the power plants of tomorrow. Powering the world, the renewable liquid engine. The most immediate promise of the blue economy lies in marine renewable energy. Our planet is a water world, and that water is in constant rhythmic motion. The sheer kinetic energy stored in the waves, the tides, and the thermal layers of the ocean is enough to power human civilization several times over without ever emitting a single molecule of carbon. Imagine a world powered by tidal energy. Unlike wind or solar, which are variable and unpredictable, the tides are governed by the clockwork precision of the moon. They are 100% predictable, centuries in advance. In places like the Bay of Fundy in Canada or the Pentland Firth in Scotland, we are deploying massive underwater turbines, essentially windmills for the sea. Because water is nearly 800 times denser than air, these turbines can generate enormous amounts of electricity with relatively small blades. They sit silently on the seafloor, invisible to the eye and harmless to the environment, providing a steady, reliable pulse of power to the grid. Then there is wave energy. Every wave that breaks on a shore is a carrier of energy that has traveled thousands of miles across the open sea. We are now developing oscillating water columns and point absorbers, floating devices that bob with the swell, converting the vertical motion of the ocean into rotational energy for generators. From the rugged coasts of Portugal to the shores of Australia, these devices are turning the restlessness of the sea into a clean, infinite battery. But perhaps the most futuristic of all is OTEC, Ocean Thermal Energy Conversion. This technology capitalizes on the massive temperature difference between the sun-warmed surface waters of the tropics and the near-freezing depths of the abyss. By using the warm water to vaporize a fluid with a low boiling point and the cold water to condense it back, we can create a continuous power cycle that runs 24 hours a day, regardless of the weather. OTEC plants don't just produce electricity. As a byproduct, they can produce desalinated drinking water and provide cold water cooling for coastal cities. It is a total system solution born from the very structure of the ocean itself. The regenerative plate. Feeding 10 billion people by the year 2050, the human population is expected to reach 10 billion. Feeding this many people using only land-based agriculture would require clearing every remaining forest on Earth. The solution lies in regenerative aquaculture, or what some call 3D ocean farming. Traditional fish farming often came with heavy environmental costs, pollution, disease, and the depletion of wild fish stocks for feed. But the new wave of ocean farming is different. Imagine forests of kelp and meadows, of seagrass suspended from ropes in the open sea, surrounded by cages of oysters, mussels, and scallops. This is a zero-input system. These organisms don't need to be fed, they don't need fresh water, and they don't need fertilizer. Instead, they thrive by filtering the water, absorbing excess nitrogen, and sequestering massive amounts of carbon. Kelp is a miracle crop of the blue economy. It grows up to 2 feet a day and can be used for everything from nutritious food and organic fertilizer to biodegradable plastics and biofuels. By moving our food production into the sea and focusing on species that improve the environment rather than deplete it, we are turning the ocean into a global pantry that heals the planet. We are learning to farm the blue without leaving a scar. Blue gold, the biotechnology revolution. As we explored in Part 8, the deep sea is a pharmaceutical goldmine. But the blue economy looks at this as more than just medicine. It is the dawn of marine biotechnology. The genetic sequences of deep-sea organisms, shaped by millions of years of survival in extreme pressure and darkness, hold the blueprints for a new industrial age. We are discovering enzymes from deep-sea vents that can break down plastic waste at room temperature. We are studying the glue that barnacles use to stick to ships to create surgical adhesives that can heal wounds inside the human body without stitches. We are looking at the bioluminescent proteins of jellyfish to develop new ways of lighting our cities without electricity. The blue gold of the abyss is not found in minerals or oil. It is found in the code of life itself. By protecting these habitats, we are protecting a library of solutions for problems we haven't even encountered yet. Decarbonizing the high seas. Green shipping. Global trade is the lifeblood of our economy, and 90% of that trade moves by sea. But the massive container ships that cross our oceans are also major emitters of sulfur and carbon. The blue economy is driving the green shipping revolution. We are seeing the return of wind-assisted propulsion, not with traditional canvas sails, but with rotor sails and solid wing sails that use the Magnus effect to pull ships through the water with 30% less fuel. We are developing engines that run on green ammonia and liquid hydrogen, fuels that produce only water vapor as exhaust. We are even designing autonomous electric cargo ships that glide through the waves with no crew and zero emissions. The shipping lanes of the future will be quiet, clean, and powered by the very elements they traverse. The value of nature, blue carbon markets. Perhaps the most profound shift in the blue economy is the financial valuation of blue carbon. For too long, we considered a mangrove forest or a seagrass meadow to be worthless unless it was cleared for a shrimp farm or a luxury resort. But in the new economy, we recognize that these ecosystems are some of the most efficient carbon capture devices on the planet. A single acre of mangroves can store 10 times more carbon than an acre of tropical rainforest. A single great whale, through its whale pump of nutrients and its massive body of stored carbon, is estimated to be worth over $2 million to the global economy in climate regulation services alone. We are now creating blue carbon credits, where corporations and governments pay to restore and protect these habitats. This turns conservation into a profitable enterprise. It means that a coastal community in Indonesia or Kenya can earn a sustainable living by protecting their mangroves rather than cutting them down. It aligns the incentives of the market with the needs of the biosphere. The digital twin, managing the global commons. To manage this new economy, we need a level of data that we have never had before. This is where the digital twin of the ocean comes in. As we saw in Part 7, we are using AI, satellites and autonomous drones to create a real-time, high-definition digital replica of the entire ocean. This digital twin allows us to predict the impact of a new wave energy farm before a single bolt is turned. It allows us to track illegal fishing vessels in real time, using satellite AI to identify ships that turn off their transponders. It allows us to model the effects of a marine heat wave and move our aquaculture farms to safer waters. The blue economy is a smart economy, guided by data and managed with a degree of precision that was unimaginable to the sailors of the past. The ethical horizon, the BBNJ and beyond. However, with great opportunity comes great responsibility. The high seas, the waters beyond national borders, represent the largest global commons on Earth. For decades, they were a lawless frontier. But in 2023, the world agreed on the BBNJ, Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction, Treaty. This historic agreement provides the legal framework for the blue economy. It ensures that the benefits of marine genetic resources are shared fairly among all nations, not just the wealthy few who have the technology to reach the deep. It sets the rules for environmental impact assessments for any industrial activity in the abyss. It is the constitution for the ocean, a reminder that the blue belongs to everyone, and its protection is a collective duty. We are moving from the era of the Wild West to the era of the global guardian. As we look toward the horizon, it is clear that the 21st century will be the blue century. We have reached the limits of our expansion on land. Our soils are depleted, our forests are shrinking, and our atmosphere is strained. But the ocean, vast, mysterious, and resilient, offers a second chance. The blue economy is our opportunity to get it right. It is our chance to build an industrial system that mimics the circular, waste-free logic of the deep-sea ecosystems. It is our chance to generate power without fire and food without destruction. The abyss is not just a place to study, it is a place to respect. Our journey through the ocean is reaching its final crescendo. We have seen the biology, the technology, the history, and the economics of the deep. In the next part of our story, we will explore the last frontier of the mind. We will look at the psychological and spiritual connection between humans and the sea, the blue mind, and why our very sanity depends on the health of the waves. The deep is calling us home, not as conquerors, but as partners. The tidal turbines are turning, the kelp forests are swaying, and the carbon credits are being signed. The blue economy is no longer a dream. It is the rising tide of our future. And in that tide, we find the hope of a world where the land and the sea exist in a perfect, enduring balance. Throughout this journey, we have explored the ocean through the cold, objective lenses of science and technology. We have measured the crushing pressure of the trenches, mapped the volcanic ridges of the seafloor, and decoded the complex songs of the great whales. We have looked at the ocean as a biological factory, a carbon vault, and an economic engine. But there is another dimension to the sea that is perhaps even more profound, though far more difficult to quantify. This is the blue mind, the deep biological and psychological connection that humans share with the water. Have you ever wondered why, when the world feels too loud or our burdens feel too heavy, we instinctively gravitate toward the shoreline? Why does the mere sight of the horizon or the rhythmic sound of the waves have the power to lower our pulse and quiet the storms within our minds? To understand the deep sea, we must eventually look inward. We are a terrestrial species, yet our brains and bodies are inextricably linked to the blue. This is the story of how the abyss shapes our sanity, how the water heals our trauma, and why our very spirit depends on the health of the unseen depths. The evolutionary cradle, why we are water people. The connection begins with our biology. We like to think of ourselves as creatures of the land, but we are, in a very real sense, bags of seawater walking on the earth. Every cell in your body is a tiny aquatic environment. Your blood has a chemical composition strikingly similar to that of the ancient oceans where our ancestors first emerged billions of years ago. Our brains are roughly 75% water. When we are near the ocean, we aren't just visiting a landscape. We are returning to our origins. This biological link is wired into our nervous system. Marine biologists and psychologists have identified a phenomenon they call the blue mind, a mildly meditative state characterized by calm, peacefulness, unity, and a sense of general happiness and satisfaction with life in the moment. This is contrasted with what researchers call the red mind, the state of chronic stress, high arousal, and digital distraction that defines modern life. When we step away from our screens and toward the waves, our brain chemistry shifts. The sight of water triggers the release of neurochemicals like dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin, the hormones of happiness and bonding, while simultaneously reducing the levels of cortisol, the primary stress hormone. We are hardwired to find peace in the presence of water, because for most of our evolutionary history, water meant survival. To our ancestors, the sight of a healthy ocean or a clear river was a signal that they had found life, safety, and abundance. That ancient signal still echoes in our modern brains today. The rhythm of the womb, the acoustic sanctuary. As we explored in Part 4 and Part 7, the ocean is alive with sound. But to the human ear, the most important sound is the rhythmic crashing of the surf. This sound is what scientists call pink noise, a sound where the power of the signal decreases as the frequency increases. Unlike white noise, which can feel harsh and clinical, pink noise mimics the natural rhythms of our own biology. The beat of the waves, roughly 12 to 15 cycles per minute, closely resembles the rhythm of a resting human breath. It matches the heartbeat of a mother as heard by a child in the womb. When we listen to the ocean, we are hearing a sound that is ancient, predictable, and fundamentally safe. It provides a cognitive ease that allows our prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for complex decision-making and stress, to finally go offline. In the deep sea, this acoustic environment is even more profound. In the Sofar Channel, sound travels forever, creating a muffled, weightless world of echoes. This is why many people find comfort in the idea of the abyss. It represents a total sensory withdrawal, a place where the noise of the surface world is obliterated by the heavy, silent embrace of the water. It is the ultimate sensory deprivation tank, a place where we can finally hear the thoughts we've been drowning out on land. The visual horizon, cognitive freedom. Beyond the sound, there is the visual impact of the blue. The human brain is an information processing machine. In our cities and offices, our eyes are constantly bombarded with visual noise. Sharp angles, bright lights, moving text, and thousands of distinct objects. This leads to cognitive fatigue. But when you stand on the shore and look out at the Atlantic or the Pacific, the visual field is simplified. There is the blue of the water and the blue of the sky meeting at a single, clean line, the horizon. This vast, open space provides our brain with a rare opportunity for soft fascination. We aren't forced to focus on any one thing, so our attention can wander freely. This visual simplicity allows us to enter a state of default mode network activity, the part of the brain that is active when we are daydreaming or self-reflecting. This is where creativity is born. It is no coincidence that many of the greatest scientific breakthroughs and artistic masterpieces in history were conceived by the sea. The ocean doesn't just clear our minds, it expands them. It provides a canvas for the imagination that the land, with its boundaries and fences, simply cannot match. The blue space as a healer. Therapy from the depths. In recent years, the medical community has begun to recognize the clinical power of blue spaces. We have long known about the benefits of green spaces, parks and forests, but new research suggests that water environments have an even greater impact on mental health. In programs designed for veterans suffering from PTSD, surf therapy and deep-sea diving have shown remarkable results. When a person with severe trauma enters the water, the weightlessness of the environment provides a physical relief that mirrors the psychological release. Underwater, the constant threat detection of the traumatized brain is quieted. The focus shifts to the simple, rhythmic act of breathing. There is also the overview effect, a term originally coined for astronauts who, upon seeing Earth from space, experience a cognitive shift in how they view humanity and the planet. Divers experience a similar shift. When you are suspended in the blue, looking up at the surface from 60 feet down, or watching a remote-operated vehicle explore a trench on a screen, your own problems begin to feel microscopic. The sheer scale of the abyss provides a sense of awe, and awe is one of the most powerful psychological tools we have for combating depression and anxiety. It reminds us that we are part of something vast, ancient, and enduring. The spiritual abyss. Myth, memory, and the void. Humanity's connection to the deep is not just psychological, it is spiritual. In every coastal culture in history, the deep sea has been viewed as the womb of the world. For the Polynesians, the ocean was the progenitor of all life, a living god named Tangaroa. For the ancient Greeks, the deep was Poseidon's realm, a place of mystery and terror. But as we have moved into the scientific age, that spiritualism has evolved. We no longer see the abyss as a place of vengeful gods, but as a place of profound existential truth. The deep sea is where life began. It is the source of our ancestry. When we look at a black smoker or a glass sponge, we are looking at our distant relatives. This creates a sense of ecological belonging. In a world where many people feel disconnected and isolated, the ocean provides a sense of place. It reminds us that we are not on the earth, but of the earth. The abyss, with its billions of unnamed creatures and its silent volcanic heart, is a reminder that the world does not belong to us. We belong to the world. There is a deep, quiet comfort in that realization. It is the peace that comes with surrendering to a force that is greater than oneself. The sublime, the marriage of terror and beauty. The deep sea also represents the sublime, a philosophical concept that describes an experience of overwhelming greatness that can inspire both awe and fear. The abyss is terrifying. It is a place where you would be crushed, frozen, and blinded in an instant. Yet it is also beautiful beyond words. This duality is essential for our psychological health. We live in a world that is increasingly managed and safe. We have tamed the forests and paved the roads, but the deep sea remains untamable. It is the last wild place. Knowing that there is still a realm of monsters and mysteries that we cannot control is vital for the human spirit. It keeps us humble. It fuels our curiosity. It ensures that the world still holds secrets. When we watch footage of a giant squid or a Dumbo octopus, we feel a thrill of the unknown. It reminds us that we are still explorers. It keeps the inner child alive in an adult world of spreadsheets and schedules. The abyss is the ultimate playground for the human imagination, a place where we can dream of alien worlds without ever leaving our own planet. The blue mind in a changing world. As we enter an era of environmental crisis, the blue mind is under threat. When we see the plastic in the trenches or the bleaching of the reefs, we feel a sense of solastalgia, the distress caused by the loss of a home environment. The pain we feel when the ocean is harmed is not just an intellectual concern, it is a physical and psychological wound. Because our brains are so deeply connected to the water, a sick ocean leads to a sick human spirit. But this connection also provides the solution. When we engage in blue mind activities, when we volunteer for a beach cleanup, support marine conservation, or simply spend time by the waves, we are engaging in an act of mutual healing. We heal the ocean, and the ocean heals us. It is a reciprocal loop of care that is the foundation of the new environmental movement. We have reached the final stage of our journey. We have descended from the sun-drenched surface, where the whales breach, to the crushing silence of the Challenger Deep. We have witnessed the volcanic forges of the mid-Atlantic ridge, the mummified history of sunken cities, and the alien minds of the cephalopods. We have followed the global currents as they regulate our climate and explored the deep-sea pharmacy that holds the cures for our most devastating diseases. We have looked into the blue mind and realized that the ocean is not just a place we visit, but a part of our very soul. But now, as we prepare to return to the light of the surface, we must face the most important question of all. What happens next? This is the final chapter of our Odyssey, a vision for the future, a catalogue of the mysteries that remain, and a call to action for the generations that will inherit this blue planet. The map of silence, charting the final 95%. The greatest irony of our modern age is that we live in a world that feels fully discovered. We have satellites that can read a license plate from orbit and a global internet that connects every corner of the land. Yet, as we have seen throughout this series, the vast majority of our own planet remains a complete mystery. Less than 5% of the ocean has been explored in high resolution. We have better maps of the moon's craters than we do of the canyons that lie just a few miles off our own coasts. This is about to change. We are entering the decade of the Great Mapping. Initiatives like Seabed 2030 are mobilizing a global fleet of autonomous drones, research vessels, and satellite AI to create the first ever high-resolution 3D map of the entire seafloor. Why does this matter? Because you cannot protect what you do not know. A complete map of the ocean floor will reveal the hidden pathways of the global currents, allowing us to predict climate change with 10 times the accuracy we have today. It will uncover thousands of new seamounts, each one a potential hotspot of biodiversity and ancient coral. It will reveal the locations of lost shipwrecks and the geological scars of ancient tsunamis, helping us protect coastal communities from future disasters. But most importantly, it will fill in the blank spaces on our planetary map. It will turn the map of silence into a map of knowledge, proving that we are finally ready to take full responsibility for the world we inhabit. The unnamed millions, the biology of the future. As we map the terrain, we are also mapping the life within it. Marine biologists estimate that between 1 million and 2 million marine species remain unknown to science. Think about the scale of that ignorance. For every glowing jelly or deep-sea shark we have seen in this series, there are a dozen more creatures that have never been glimpsed by a human eye. In the next 50 years, we will likely discover life forms that challenge our very definition of biology. We are looking for the megafauna of the trenches, giant organisms that might exist in the most remote pockets of the Hadal Zone. We are searching for microbes that live deep within the Earth's crust, miles beneath the sea floor, surviving on nothing but the heat and chemistry of the mantle. These discoveries will do more than just fill our textbooks. They will revolutionize our understanding of evolution. They will show us how life can adapt to the most extreme conditions in the universe. Every new species we find is a new instruction manual for survival, a new set of genetic codes that could solve our problems with energy, medicine, and materials. The deep sea is a biological gold mine that never runs out, provided we have the wisdom to keep the mine intact. The lab for the stars, the cosmic connection. The future of the ocean is also inextricably linked to the future of space exploration. As we look toward the icy moons of the outer solar system, Europa at Jupiter and Enceladus at Saturn, we are realizing that the deep sea is our best laboratory for the search for extraterrestrial life. Both of these moons possess vast subsurface oceans that are kept liquid by the tidal heat of their parent planets. These oceans are dark, pressurized, and potentially filled with hydrothermal vents, much like our own. When we test our newest autonomous robots in the Arctic or the Mariana Trench, we aren't just exploring Earth. We are training for the day we send a probe through miles of ice on a distant moon. The extremophiles of the abyss, the bacteria that eat sulfur and the worms that thrive in boiling water, are our proof that life does not need a sun to exist. If we find life in the deep-sea vents of Earth, the probability of life elsewhere in the galaxy becomes a near certainty. The abyss is the bridge between our world and the cosmos. To understand the deep is to understand the potential for life across the universe. The ethical crossroads, deep sea, mining versus deep time thinking. We are also approaching a moment of profound ethical choice. In the next decade, humanity must decide the fate of the abyssal plains. As we discussed in Part 9 and 10, the polymetallic nodules on the seafloor are a tempting resource for our green energy transition. But the cost of extracting them may be the destruction of an ecosystem that has been stable for millions of years. This is the ultimate test of our maturity as a species. Can we move beyond the extractive mindset that has defined the last 2 centuries? Can we develop a circular economy that recycles the minerals we already have on land, rather than destroying the last wild places on Earth to get more? The choice we make about deep-sea mining will define our legacy for the next million years. The deep sea is a world of deep time. A single footprint in the silt can last for decades. A mining scar can last for centuries. We are called to be deep time thinkers, to consider the impact of our actions, not on the next quarter's profits, but on the next 1,000 generations. We have the technology to mine the abyss, but do we have the wisdom to leave it alone? The restoration of the blue, a vision for 2010. If we choose the path of stewardship, the future of the blue marble is one of incredible hope. By the year 2100, we could see a world where the ocean is more vibrant and productive than it is today. Imagine a future where 30% of the ocean is a fully protected sanctuary, a global park where the whales can sing without the roar of ships, and the corals can grow for millennia without the threat of trawlers. Imagine a global shipping fleet that is completely silent and emission-free, powered by green hydrogen and the wind. Imagine regenerative ocean farms that provide healthy food for billions while simultaneously cleaning the water and capturing carbon. This is not a utopian fantasy. It is a technological and political possibility. We are already seeing the first steps. The High Seas Treaty has provided the legal foundation. The blue carbon markets are providing the funding. All that is missing is the collective will. The restoration of the ocean is the most powerful tool we have for the restoration of our climate. If we give the ocean the space it needs to heal, it will heal the rest of the world in return. The new human, from conqueror to partner. Our journey has shown us that the old human view of the ocean as an obstacle to be crossed or a resource to be plundered is obsolete. We are moving toward the era of the ocean partner. This is a human who understands that their own health is a direct reflection of the ocean's health. This shift will change our culture, our education, and our spirituality. We will teach our children that the blue marble is not a metaphor, but a biological reality. We will celebrate the migrations of the whales as global events, as important as any national holiday. We will view the preservation of a deep-sea trench as an act of cultural heritage, as vital as the preservation of the Great Pyramids or the Louvre. We are rediscovering our ocean literacy. We are learning that the abyss is not a dark, scary place down there, but a beautiful, essential heart of our home. This realization is the ultimate goal of our exploration. We went into the dark to find answers, and we found ourselves. The final message, the stewardship of wonder. As we return to the surface, and the pressure begins to lift, and the blue light of the sun begins to filter through the waves once more, we carry with us a new sense of wonder. We have seen that the world is much larger, much older, and much more mysterious than we ever imagined. The deep sea is a gift. It is a gift of oxygen, of food, of climate stability, and of endless curiosity. But it is a gift that comes with a condition. We must be its guardians. We are the first generation of humans in history to possess the technology to see the deep, and we are the first to possess the power to destroy it. This gives us a unique and heavy responsibility. We must become the eyes of the abyss. We must speak for the creatures that have no voice, the glowing jellies, the ancient sharks, and the silent sponges. We must protect the archive of the abyss for the scientists of the future. We must ensure that the blue mind remains a sanctuary for the human soul. Conclusion. The endless sea. Our odyssey through the ocean is over, but the ocean's story continues. Every second the tides are turning. Every second a new batch of marine snow is falling. Every second a whale is singing a song that will travel for 1,000 miles. The ocean is an eternal, breathing presence that has been here for 4 billion years and will be here long after we are gone. To stand on the shore is to stand at the beginning of the world. To look out at the horizon is to look at the future. The abyss is deep, and its secrets are infinite. But as we have seen, we are not strangers to the dark. We are the children of the blue planet, and the sea is calling us to remember who we are. Let the weight of the water remind you of your strength. Let the silence of the deep remind you of your peace. And let the vastness of the blue marble remind you of your home. The journey never truly ends. For as long as we have curiosity, as long as we have wonder, and as long as we have the courage to look beneath the surface, the ocean will continue to reveal its truths. The blue marble is in your hands. Sleep now and dream of the deep, for the sea is watching over you. Good night.